Hi, I'm Rich Sains, and this is the Procurement Conversation. In this series, I've been fortunate to speak with inspirational young procurement leaders from different sectors, roles and regions. By sharing their stories, we want more people to hear about procurement, including the leaders of tomorrow. This week, as part of our Young Leaders series, we're talking to Ed Gamble, who's Digital Garage Manager at BP. Hi, Ed.
Hi, how you doing?
Great. First, what's a garage?
Yeah, so a garage within BP, effectively our job is to take procurement problems and find interesting and innovative new technology and bring it into the organization to run short, sharp pilots. So whether that's to improve efficiency, reduce cost, impact our sustainability or risk management, we try and find those problems within our procurement function and then try and solve them through new technology.
And how did you first get into procurement? And was there anything else that you were thinking of doing along the way?
There wasn't really anything that kind of drew me to procurement. It was more something I got into by mistake in reality. So I'm a historian by degree. And when I left university, there wasn't much of a game plan in terms of a career. But I happened to come across a job locally that was for a third-party procurement company. They did very tactical transactional procurement for oil and gas companies in the Middle East. And it was a really interesting, kind of eye-opening experience where you got your hands dirty, learnt the basics of procurement from sourcing all the way through to delivery of products. And after doing that for kind of 2 years, I was thinking, I quite enjoyed that. That was good fun. I quite like the oil and gas industry. So then started applying to graduate schemes and got into procurement that way. But it wasn't part of a grand plan or anything like that. It was certainly something I fell into by mistake. But here I am nearly 13 years later, still there, still enjoying it. So that's all good.
And what do you love about it?
For me, the parts of procurement that I really enjoy are the variety of challenges that you come across, the variety of people that you work with. And to that end, it's the people part of it. As a procurement professional, you have to embed yourself both with your suppliers, but also with your stakeholders and build those relationships quickly. You have to have a high level of EQ. I love collaboration. I love delivering solutions for people. And so I suppose the part of procurement that really drives me and that I really enjoy is being able to experience lots of different things, solve lots of interesting challenges and work with lots of different people.
And what does a normal day look like for you?
So predominantly, I think for most people, I think it's just spending a lot of time on calls and talking to people and whether that's understanding more about a particular problem or a particular product or learning more about your business. I think a day goes by without me learning something new or developing a bit more knowledge around something that happens within our organization. But it's predominantly talking to people and then delivering against whatever actions come off the back of that.
And anything you don't like so much?
So for a long time, there was a kind of a frustration with kind of the nitty-gritty admin-y bits of the procurement process. In some previous roles when I'd been doing a lot of the kind of up against the coalface sourcing, just constant kind of Excel spreadsheets and all of that sort of thing, that can grind slightly. But arguably, I could say that I haven't done what I deem to be true procurement for quite a few years now. I've always been in and around the function, but the last time I ran a sourcing event, I couldn't tell you. So I think now probably the thing that grates with me the most is probably that procurement functions can often be accountable for a lot of things, to deliver a lot of things within the business, but aren't necessarily either the budget holders or be resourced in such a way to be able to execute to the best of their ability. So you're then in a position where you're having to deliver a lot with less or not being in control of what you have to be able to deliver that particular thing. I suppose it's more of a political thing within the organization these days. People are looking to procurement more and more to deliver not just savings, but to deliver change within the business, but then aren't adequately funding what it is they want to achieve or resourcing the thing they want to achieve. And I know that we could deliver a lot more if those things change slightly.
It's a common issue that I hear is over the last few years, almost every year there's been a big topic that's landed on procurement's plate that we have to deliver alongside everything else, and we were already pretty stretched as it was. Do you see digital as the way that we're going to be able to break through that?
Yeah, for sure. But I think part of the problem is getting the investment in those digital solutions that will help us get there. I think for me, the future of procurement is less around some of these tactical transactional activities. A lot of that will be taken by new pieces of technology, digital transformation, and procurement professionals will transition to being more, certainly if you're working in a category, you'll be more of a relationship manager or a performance manager of the suppliers rather than running those events. And you'll be setting digital strategies for your category, which ultimately means that you're removing a lot of the work for yourself. But that's only possible if organizations invest in those technologies and invest in that particular area. So in answer to your question, yes, I do see digital as being the route forward and the thing that'll drive the change. But we need to take time to make sure that we're investing in the right tools and investing in them in the first place.
You mentioned a few things there around procurement obviously becoming more of a relationship driver. What other key skills do you think are important for procurement people looking forward?
So I think I've touched on a few bits, and I think for me, it's more around that emotional intelligence, the ability and willingness to collaborate, to persuade, to influence, to be able to listen to what people are saying and understand what they're saying and take the context of that and apply it to whatever solution it is you deliver for them. Not quite to the level of kind of being a customer services engine, but for me, procurement is about those people skills and being able to then work a solution. I think obviously there's always a place and a role for those commercial skills, for negotiation, for knowing how to run a sourcing event, how to build a great category strategy. Don't get me wrong, those are kind of fundamentals. But a lot of that can be taught and can be learnt. I think the piece around emotional intelligence and the people skills is perhaps harder to learn if it's something that you don't have already. But I see procurement certainly moving more in that direction where it's about working within teams, being a team within teams to deliver, whether it's savings, efficiency, whatever it is that you to achieve.
And how do you go about learning and developing yourself?
So internally, we have a great kind of learning platform where you can tailor whatever it is. You can tailor your learning program or your learning roadmap to whatever it is you want to learn. So whether that's agile ways of working, project management, some of the fundamental procurement skills, all of that stuff is there either as webinars or as 6-week-long programs that you can sign up for. So internally, we've got that kind of great tool that we can use. But more broadly, I think I do most of my learning from my suppliers and from going out into the market, going to conferences, talking to people. That's for me the quickest way to really start to grow and understand new areas and new topics. For example, I picked up a project in October on Scope 3 emissions. ESG, sustainability isn't really something that I've done much on up to this point. But from October, I've been to a couple of events. I've spoken to a number of suppliers. I've been working with my internal stakeholders on the area. And it's something that's now I feel like it's a skill that I can add to my wheelhouse to say, yeah, I've got an understanding of this area. By no means I'm not an expert. Getting out there, talking to people and learning about it as you go.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say that my network is one of the most powerful things that I have, especially working in IT procurement over the years. You work with a number of salespeople in certain organisations. They'll go on. They're usually involved in the latest and greatest things, and then obviously you can have a bit of a off-the-record conversation with them, understand a little bit about the market, and it's a great way of learning and understanding what's going on out there.
Yeah, for sure.
What would you say you're most proud of in your career?
So there's quite a few different things. I've worked in a couple of different areas and worked on some kind of big projects that have either delivered value or kind of negotiated contracts with particularly difficult suppliers or what have you. But I think for me, if I were to look through my back catalogue of achievements, the one that kind of stands out for me at the moment is we delivered a vested contract. I'm not sure whether you've come across vested contracts before or vested ways of working. But for those that don't know it, it's a collaborative methodology for working with suppliers and to be able to almost work with them two in a box. Everything's done jointly. You leave your company names at the door and you come together as one organization to deliver a contract and a program of work. So particularly for myself, I was part of the procurement team that helped deliver a a vested contract for facilities management with our facilities management partner. That was the first to my knowledge, first vested contract in oil and gas, first vested contract in the facilities management industry as well. And alongside all of that, it was an 9 month process ultimately that we did, but it was all done through COVID as well. It's normally done in workshops, in person, over a period of a few months. And this was done all online, having to go into breakout rooms and everything. And it was a very intense, long process, but it was something that I truly felt delivered a game-changing contract. And actually we're seeing the kind of the value of that nature of contract now in the services being delivered across our offices and across our workplaces. And to be part of that process, I think it's won a couple of awards as well now externally. It's quite a nice thing to be involved with. And I think actually, yes, that's the plaque on the wall. They said, we'll send you a certificate. Once you've done the contract, you get an award. It's not an award, a qualification for having done a vested deal. And they said, oh, we'll send you a certificate in the post. I said, oh, great, I'll have a certificate. Yeah, that's great. It's a wooden plaque on it that you can hang on a wall. Yeah, that's quite nice as well.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's a great achievement. I love it when you get involved in something that's truly game-changing. It's one of the first times it's been done. And working with a group of really driven people to get to an outcome, that's brilliant. What would you say is your period of greatest growth?
I think of development and learning and skills and all of those things, the period I spent as a graduate, so that was a 3-year period. It's fast-paced. You've got a development program that you've got to work through, skills you've got to tick off. Through that 3-year period, you do 3 rotations. So you're dropped into a category pretty quickly. 12-month rotations. You've got to learn it, pick it up. By the time you're feeling comfortable, you're moving into a new role in a completely different area, doing completely different things. And during that process, I did category management, I did sourcing, I did some transformation projects. I was part of a team my first rotation was in a shipping business. Never worked in shipping before. We did a program around rejuvenating the fleet, so building new vessels, new tankers. That was mind-blowing, just the sheer quantity of things that you needed and the money that was being spent as a first-year graduate was pretty intense. But then on top of all of that work that you're doing, we're also expected to complete the 3-year SIPS course. So by the time you finish the graduate scheme, you're fully MSIPS qualified. So through that piece, you've not just got your day job, you've then got kind of revision and work to be doing when you get home as well. So that was pretty intense, but that was a good learning period. And credit to my managers and credit to the program. They don't babysit you. So I vividly remember my first day in the office. I walk in, here's your desk. And on that desk was a lever arch file with all the stuff I had to do and all the projects I needed to pick up that was handed off to me by the last graduate that was there. It was day one, you're straight in at the deep end. So that was a pretty strong kind of growth period. But then once you move out of that, you're ready for, I suppose, to be a real boy, as it were.
Would you say that graduate programs are still pretty common in the industry, or do you think that there's less than there were? Or because it sounds like they're pretty transformational in terms of the development you can.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for other organisations and the way that they run their programs or whether they run them at all. But I certainly see the graduate scheme. I'm a big fan of the graduate scheme within my organisation. I think it's a great foundational way to build talent and bring talent through. And actually, you end up bringing not just people with kind of a good skill set through who are hardworking and intelligent and so on, but you've then got people that are coming into your business from that scheme that understand it. They know they've been there. They've had 3 years of experience across multiple parts of the business. They can go anywhere and make a difference and do a job. Yeah, I really do think that in terms of a pipeline of talent, graduate schemes are a great way to go. They may have dropped off slightly. And I think certainly in procurement as an industry, we probably struggle because it's changing now. But certainly when I went to university, there weren't that many courses, if at all, that were doing supply chain or logistics or anything. There was business management courses, sure, but specifically procurement, not really. And I do a lot of stuff where I go into schools and talk of career fairs and things like that and talk about what I do. And one of the first question I get asked, and it's the question I get asked the most, is what's procurement? People don't really know who we are or what we do. And equally, if you ask a lot of our colleagues in other parts of the business that don't work into procurement, I think there's a reputation that the industry has that perhaps is unfair. And we've certainly moved on from that reputation of being blockers or just admin or the wallet holders or whatever the case may be. That maybe 20 years ago, that was the case, but I wouldn't say that is what happens now. So there's probably some work to do to change how we're seen and how to make it exciting for young people coming into the world of work. But the people that we see coming into the grad scheme, they understand what the job is. They have an interest in it. Some people, actually this year, nearly everyone had done some sort of supply chain degree in some shape or form, or business management. So they clearly understood what they were doing. And then obviously leads to them wanting to have this as a long-term career rather than applying out of, luck or lack of options or whatever the case may be. And I'll happily put my hand up and say, when I left uni, I didn't expect to be in procurement. I didn't expect to be doing a graduate scheme in procurement, but I got into it by mistake and I really enjoy what I do. So I think that's where grad schemes come in, because that gave me the opportunity to grow and develop and progress.
I think that's right. Over the next couple of years, we should see a lot more graduates coming through from procurement supply chain degrees, given the visibility it had over the pandemic. And 3 years on from that. And what do you see as the external perception of procurement? You mentioned there a little bit about outside the industry, sometimes it could still be seen as an admin function, a blocker. Do you still see that amongst your suppliers and peers and colleagues?
Not to the same extent. When I first started in procurement, I'd say that when I spoke to my friends or peers, they go, oh, procurement. And it was with an eye roll, because it was seen as the function that just did the contracts and slowed everything down and got in the way for the sake of saving a few pennies here or there. I think certainly as I've progressed in my career and progressed through my organization, that shift is changing. We're increasingly getting a seat at that table and being seen as partners in the process. And increasingly, actually, the business is coming to us to say, this is what we want to do. How do we do it? Who do we talk? Who are the suppliers we need to talk to? What is the particular piece of technology we need to go after? And less us being gatekeepers and more becoming enablers to drive whatever it is that the business wants to achieve. And so to sit with us, to have us sit there and to be part of that conversation is a lot more powerful, because we bring an insight that perhaps the business hasn't thought about or gone through. And I think also there's an interesting shift happening at the moment within my organization, where we have parts of our business now bidding for work externally and competing in RFPs in other organizations' procurement. And so they're coming to us saying, they're asking us this question, what does this mean? Or how do we answer this question? And so that's another, area that we can help and support in and provide that advice to. But I'd certainly say that procurement is moving in the right direction. We're less blockers and more enablers now, for sure.
And looking ahead, where do you see procurement going?
So I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but I do see it becoming more digitally enabled. I think the skill sets of negotiation, sourcing, category management, that's all going to be there. That's all going to still be needed. But I think the tactical, administrative, hands-on day-to-day bits, getting down in the weeds of procurement activity, that's going to go eventually. There are lots of pieces of technology out there in the market now that will either speed up those processes significantly or take them off your plate entirely. And you can just have them happening in the background and just giving them a cursory look. The transition for a lot of people now is looking towards kind of those relationship pieces. And I think the future of procurement becomes one more of being a business partner. And like I said, an enabler to the business rather than just being a support function, a back office function. And with that comes all of the skills that I've talked about already, a need for collaboration, a need for emotional intelligence. And that's not just internally, that's working with suppliers as well and bringing suppliers on that journey with you. partnerships is a big thing now. That can only happen through relationships and collaboration. So I think, procurement is certainly moving in that direction.
And what would you like to do next?
Great question. The honest answer is I don't know. I've been working in kind of digital procurement transformation for the past 4 years now. Before that, it was in professional services. So probably in directs or digital transformation in some respect. But I think whatever I do, it needs to involve people. It needs to involve whether that's relationships, collaboration, working with suppliers, or people development. I've got a strong passion for, I've mentioned, graduate schemes, but I do coaching, I do mentoring of graduate colleagues as well. So anything to do with people development or collaboration with suppliers and stakeholders would tick a lot of boxes for me. But I've only been in my current role for about 9 months, so I'm not looking for anything new right now.
I think, digital is going to be a great asset for the future, isn't it? Having done that within an organization is a big thing. And as you say, actually, for me, the key skill within any digital transformation is the focus on people, because without the people and bringing the people on the journey, you're just buying another piece of technology that's going to sit on the shelf and it's not worthwhile. It doesn't get embedded, and eventually you get rid of it. Yeah, that's such an important skill, having those people skills alongside it. What advice would you give to someone who is considering a career in procurement?
Yeah, so that's an interesting one. I don't necessarily want to labour the point too much and repeat a lot of what I've said already, but I definitely think the people skills or the ability to work as part of a team is core. I think when we recruit graduates into our business, we look at the individuals in how much they reflect the kind of the values of the organization, but also the way that we like to work. So do they show the ability to think on their feet? Do they show the ability to not just work as a team, but bring people along with them? So invite people's opinions in the room, invite people to provide other pieces of information that may be missed, the smallest voice in the room, all of those sorts of things. Obviously, there is a need for them to have that commercial acumen, and we do look for that. But a lot of the other skills, we strongly feel that we can teach those core procurement skills. And actually, if you're coming in already displaying strong emotional intelligence, that's a much more powerful set. And so anybody looking to join the procurement function, obviously you need to make sure that it's something that you enjoy and it's something that you want to do as a career. But it's all about, for me at least, it's all about having that core emotional intelligence and people skills on top of commercial acumen and negotiation skills and all of those things.
Yeah, definitely. I think something done in many roles is hire for attitude, and then you can teach the skills later. Because one of the things you find about the skills is so many different organisations will do procurement in a different way. So there's an element of bringing people onto your way of doing things anyway, isn't there? So you've got to be training people and bringing people onto that. So as you say, having that base level of emotional intelligence is really important. Even things I think like negotiation is done quite differently in different organisations, or in there's different ways of working around that. I talk to a lot of procurement leaders who say that actually there's this sort of the commercial acumen piece is something that's often lacking in sort of younger people coming into the workplace. And I guess that is something that you do develop over time. But do you see that there's any particular degrees or anything that can support that, or any training that can support commercial acumen?
It's an interesting one. And actually what is relevant as well, I was thinking as you were talking, a lot of my colleagues that I work with didn't actually start in procurement and come to us from other professions or other parts of the business, and then have learned the negotiation skills and the commercial skills and the procurement skills on top of their core skill set that they're bringing from their other roles, whether they're coming from IT or HR or other parts of the business. So it is learnable, but to have that kind of core in the middle is really important. I think where did I learn my commercial skills? I think a lot of in my early career, before I joined my current organization, it was quite basic from a commercial perspective. It was, you'd go out, you'd source the product, you'd ask for a 10% discount. And then if they said no, you'd ask for a 5% discount. It wasn't particularly sophisticated. But then as I moved across and gone, a lot of what I've learned from other people and from projects or scenarios that I've been in, where someone said, oh, in a previous organization or in a previous project, we structured it like this. And, oh, that's really interesting. Why don't we think about why don't we think about doing that in this one? Or so it's really, I think it's a collective process of a lot of the tricks and the things that I use now, I've learned from other people or taken from other people's experience from my network. I think those commercial skills are things that can be taught, but to go back to your question is, are there other degrees that are teaching it? I think we recruit now predominantly from either business degrees or supply chain degrees. And so to an extent, they teach it. So there's a basic understanding of it, but it's very academic. It's haven't got much practical application, but having a fundamental understanding of it is important anyway. And that's a good start. All right. I don't think there's too many people that are coming out of school or university that have been involved in multi-million negotiations. So I wouldn't expect them to have that sort of experience at that point, but every day is a learning day.
Definitely. How do you think we could get more young people into procurement?
I think a lot of it comes down to what I mentioned earlier about changing that reputation, getting ourselves out there more. Like I said, I go to career events, both at schools and universities, and I talk about what I do and my day to day and and my career path and all these sorts of things. And there are some people that think that walk away, and I think, they were interested. They liked what they were hearing, because a lot of people say, "Oh, I want to be in business." What does that mean? And you might find that a lot of people just end up being a consultant or an accountant because that's stuff they've heard of. And so if we want more young people to want to be in procurement, we need to promote ourselves more, be a bit louder and cut through that noise. But I think the industry goes on a journey, and the procurement function goes on a journey within businesses and becomes more important to the decision-making process. That will start to get us more visibility as well. But it's all about just, I think, giving. If everyone who works in procurement gave an hour of their time in a year to go and talk to some young people, hopefully a few of them will be inspired to come and join us.
Do you get invited into schools and universities to do that, or how do you get in there? Because I guess there's probably a lot of people that would like to do that, but they don't quite know where to start. How do you?
Sure. How do you get in there? Yeah. From a university perspective, within my organization, we have a volunteer program where you put yourself forward and they say, do you want to come to these events? Because throughout the year, we send teams out to different universities to go and speak to students and let them know about what we do and the different roles available and all of those sorts of good things. And so you put yourself forward, you say, yes, please. And then you attend the events. And it's something I've been doing for several years now. It's something I really enjoy. And then with regards to some of the schoolwork, again, that volunteer platform internally helps with that, because we do outreach to local schools and local communities. And part of that is going to careers fairs and talking about those sorts of things. But also my wife's a teacher. When her school run career days, they've asked me a couple of times to come in and have a chat and explain to people what my job is and what I do. And happy to give my time.
Definitely. We need to get something in place for the wider procurement profession to be able to do that. That sounds brilliant. Ed, thanks for your time today. Really appreciate it. Yeah, thanks.
No problem at all.
Thanks for listening. Do like and share and subscribe to hear the next procurement conversation.